The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. It is now time for the civil party counsels to put questions to the witness. The chamber would like to hand over to the civil party counsels. Counsels who have been authorized to put questions to the witness will now proceed. Counsel Lao Chun Thi. I am Lao Chun Thi, representing the civil party. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. I am very honored to be given the opportunity to put questions to witness Nikon. Good afternoon, Mr. Nikon. I have some questions concerning your background, historical background. Where were you born? And when did you leave your hometown to study? Response. I was born in Cambodia Crown. I was born in Tribunal district in Khmer, Pretrapeng. And I left the district when I was 15 years old. I came to Phnom Penh. I studied at I studied in Cambodia until the day I enrolled in the Sisawat Junior High School. After I passed the diploma junior high school exam at the Sisawat High School, and I got a job. Thank you. Question. In 1969, rather 66, you worked as a school teacher in Siem Reap. In 1970, you said you went to the forest. Later on in 1975 to 1977, you engaged in propaganda in the special zone. In 1978, you were transferred to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My question is, in 1970, there was an appeal for people to go into the jungle or the forest to start the resistance movement. Could you tell us how you joined this movement? Response. I decided to join the resistance or the struggle because I noted the general aspect within the country that all people of all walks of life was convinced by the appeal of the king to fight the imperialists to promote living standards of the Cambodian people economically. For that reason, I voluntarily joined the movement. Question. I understood that it is your conscience that you joined the resistance to fight for the independence of the country. From the day when you started joining the movement until when everything was over, could you tell the court about your impression concerning your joining it? Response. I joined the movement based on the reason I indicated earlier on. And at that time, the situations kept evolving, and I did not really envisage the future situations when I joined the movement. That was the actual circumstance during that time. Question. According to your historical background, it reads that you have 3 siblings, and your brother, elder brother Son Sen and Ni Chum. May we ask why Son Sen had a different surname? Response. My elder brother surname was taken after someone based on his choice. However, when it came to me, I was not sure what kind of surname I would pick. I just chose the surname, the name of my father as my surname. Question. Before 1975, you already had joined the resistance. Where had you been in those years? Indeed, you said you were a school teacher in Siem Reap, but when you joined the revolution or the movement, where had you been? Response. I moved from Siem Reap to a new location. Indeed, when the war was started, forces were gathered to attack Phnom Penh, and I also was asked to move to a location in the vicinity of Chatras location. When I reached that location, I stayed with the military doing some propaganda tasks. Question. Concerning your education, you said you had finished junior high school, so you are somehow educated. My question is about the propaganda. How could you convince people to join the movement, to support the military. So what kind of principles you obtained to integrate in your propaganda tasks? Response: the policy taken on the propaganda courses emanating from the idea of having the monarchy as the key person behind this, because the king once appeared for people to go to the markets to fight the imperialists. Imperialists here had a broader meaning. It referred to the Lonol people. So people of all walks of life had to obey or respect the king. They loved the king. And this slogan was integrated. The slogan of affection toward the king was integrated in our propaganda to convince the people. Question: with that, you said the king was used to convince, the king's name was used to convince the people. But could you be more precise? Where was this policy obtained from? Where did you receive such instructions? From the party or from any other level? Response: the source of this information was from the groups. As I indicated time and again, teachers were formed into their own groups. And at that time, each group would be responsible for each respective district and province, and each group was tasked with propagandizing at their own respective location. And after the fighting was intensified, then we kept using such a same policy, using the appeal of the king. And I do not know further on this because it was rather secret things, and we received this information from those people, and we had to have the policy being implemented, the information being imparted to other people, and then we joined the movement. Question: when you already had started working in the revolution in late 1975, you indicated that you had persuaded some people to join force to attack Phnom Penh before Phnom Penh was liberated. Could you tell the court how you told the people, how you did to convince the people to leave the city? Did you ask them to leave the city on their own accord, or what? Response: the basis for our propaganda or appeal for the people to leave the cities were the ones I already talked about yesterday. We indicated in that propaganda that the aerial bombardments would not be avoided, and that people had to evacuate the cities temporarily. and I don't know any other things other than this. Thank you. Question. Between 1975 and 1976 and later 1977, at that time the West Zone did you observe any changes in the West Zone? Because you said you left Sector 32 for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but had the situation changed before you left for the ministry? Response. When I was transferred to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there was news obtained from other people that at the West Zone, some cadres were removed, but we could never establish the exact information about the fact of this removal. And later on, we heard that the secretary of the zone was also removed. But the information was somewhat unofficial. We heard through grapevine, and this is my own experience. Sometimes I did not know very clearly, like this morning, because I was transferred to assist the ministry, and at the same time the people at the base thought that I would be removed already, but I was actually transferred to assist the ministry. Question. You said you heard this through grapevine that people were being removed. Later on, did you know or were you aware of the fate of the people who were removed? Response. That's all I know. I don't know anything beyond this. Question. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, how many departments were there in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Response. The division of departments or offices at the ministry is not knowledgeable to me. I was assigned a small office in which I was put to be in charge of the protocol. And may I take this opportunity to specify that when I was asked whether I was the director of protocol and what it means, and I had consulted with my duty council, and we agreed that the term director implies that I was overly in charge of the office, which was not actually my role, because my function at that time was very minimal. I was assigned to a very small section of the department, And it is good that I had to make it clear before this chamber. If I had been consulted before concerning the term director, I would also have opportunity to clarify this earlier already. The President, Mr. Witness, the chamber thank you for this. You already clarified on this point this morning, and it is enough. You should refrain from repeating the same clarification. And we would like to also remind Council for the Civil Parties that you should refrain from putting questions that are not allowed by the law. For example, you should avoid questions that solicit speculation from the witness. Council. Thank you, Mr. President. In the context of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, again, you said you were in charge of escorting visitors to some places. Had you ever escorted Chinese delegations or visitors? Response: yes, I had, but I don't remember the details of each visitor. Question: you escorted other visitors. My question is, before you accompanied visitors to the other locations, had you informed other people concerned about the trip? For example, the trip to Angkor Wat. Response: at that time, when we accompanied visitors to Angkor Wat, we did not need to inform the people or the base people or local people, because at that time there was a section assigned. People were assigned in the section to receive incoming visitors. And information would be distributed to the section through a messenger. For example, in the notes we would inform the section that visitors would be visiting Angkor Wat in this particular period of time, so on and so forth. Question: when you were accompanying visitors to that location, had you ever met people along or on the road to that location? And could you tell us about the situation of the people you saw? Response: as I said this morning, people or the inhabitants along road number 6 were of very small number. People were concentrated in other faraway work sites, and I could never see them, because when I reached Kampong Thom, we would stop for meals and we had to move on, and I would see very few people, and I indicated that I saw them and they appear to have suffered from food shortage. Question: you said that you saw them briefly. How could you conclude that these people did not have enough to eat? Did you see them look skinny? Response: I saw them and it was based on my assumption or my belief that a lot of people were evacuated from Phnom Penh, and these people who I saw on the road were not the wealthy people who could barely or who couldn't have enough food to eat. So I believe that they did not have enough food to eat, and with regard to their physical appearance, they looked equally the same. I couldn't tell. Question: at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, how many groups were there in the ministry being assigned this task like yours? Response: there were several groups who that were assigned to receive or to accompany visitors. People would be assigned different tasks. If the visitors were of like they were experts, then different group of people would be assigned to receive them, and whatever assignment was, it would have been rendered from the department. Question: at the same ministry, when you had been working there, had you attended meetings regularly or frequently, and how were the meetings conducted? Response: meetings were held in accordance with the calls from the groups. Normally there would be a common meeting, a big common meeting where each personnel would be expected to attend. Another meeting is for work meeting. For example, what we would do tomorrow, who would go anywhere. This kind of subject should be part of the debate in this kind of normal work meeting. Question: is it fair to say that there were big meetings? So how many people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs attended this meeting? Can you give us some estimation of how many people joining the meetings?
I could not be exact on the number because there were members from different departments in accordance with the departments concerned. But overall, in each meetings, there were not more than 50 members. Question: within the periods with which you worked, there was meeting held regularly. So from one meeting to another, did you notice any people disappeared? Response: since I arrived in the ministry, I did not notice anyone had disappeared. Question. In 1978, do you remember saying this? I would like to quote. A certain number of party members destroy the party lines and turn to the leftism in order to undermine the forces of the party from the lower level. Even those who were from the liberalist view was also involved with them in order to destroy the party from inside. Do you remember stating this? The President, I note the defense counsel is on his feet. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honours and members of this court. I'm very sorry to step in here, but my colleague is quoting a document, and we don't know what is being quoted here. I think that for all of the parties present and for the witness himself, it would be useful for us to be given the references. Thank you.
The President. Counsel for the civil parties, please be reminded that when you are quoting an excerpt from a document, please identify the document, including the relevant EON page number, before you read out the portion of that excerpt. Counsel Laujanti. Yes, Mr. President, I was about to mention the identity of the document. The President, no, that was not the practice. The practice was that before you indicate any substance of the excerpt, you are supposed to identify the document. It was not the practice that you quote it and then you tell the court the identity of the document. Counsel, thank you. Document IS 19-170, says the counsel. IS 19.172. Relevant page in Khmer or 007 0069. French 0070345. EON in English 0007877. The document recording the interview of Ong Tung Heung. So, Mr. Witness, do you have any comment to make concerning the excerpt I just read out just now? Response. I am sorry, I don't really get your question. What your question really is, anyway? Can you clarify it? Thank you. Question. In 1978, Do you remember saying this? Certain members of the party continue to destroy the party. They adopted the leftist sentiment in order to undermine the party from the lower level. Even the liberalist group also applied the policy of leftism in order to destroy the party. Can you explain this portion? President, the witness, please hold on. The National Council for Ieng Sari is on his feet. You may proceed. Mr. Angadam. Thank you, Mr. President. There are 2 points I would like to raise. One, the Council did mention the identity of the document, but he failed to have it projected on the screen. Secondly, the defense of the Council for the civil party said that this was the document recording the interview of Ong Tung Heung, and I would like to remind the chamber that Mr. Ong Tung Heung may be a potential witness that may be subject to be summoned by the court to testify before this chamber. So I am of the opinion that the council should use a pseudonym instead of the real name. So I would like to ask for your ruling whether or not this witness be directed to answer this question, or it will violate the ruling that the chamber has already ruled upon. Thank you. The President, can Council elaborate on the basis and reasoning behind your objection so that the chamber will rule upon this objection? And the Council for Civil Party has already identified the documents, and we have to see what the Council for the Civil Party will have to say concerning this document. And the chamber will then decide whether or not to allow the witness to respond to this question. If the chamber is of the view that the question is not in compliance with the practice here, then we would not grant leave for that. Council, I basically reject the way of this line of questioning. The President, can you please elaborate the reason for your objection so that other parties may respond or reply accordingly? Council Angadam, I have 2 points, Mr. President. The first point is that the statement or the excerpt from this document was taken from an interview of a witness, and this witness' name was mentioned, and I simply would like to repeat that this was the interview of Mr. Ong Tung Heung, and this name of witness was actually in the list of the list of witnesses whom the chamber may summon. So I would like to know, based on the ruling that the President has already pronounced, that any interview of the potential witnesses will not be subjected to comment by the witness being heard by the chamber. Otherwise, it will violate the ruling of the chamber. This is the basis for my objection that this particular document should be presented to this witness. Thank you. The President, the Defense Counsel for Kyusumpon, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to supplement my colleague's objection, I want to come back to the wording that was put by my learned colleague from the civil parties. He quoted the document saying that it was a quote from witness Nick Ann. Then, when we see the document, and indeed this is why it is useful to have such things on the screen, we realize that it is not an interview with witness Nick Ann, but an interview with Ong Tong Eun. That being the case, and in all fairness vis-à-vis the witness, I believe that it would be proper to put the document into its real context so that the witness can understand that these are some statements that he is supposed to have made, but which have only been reported upon by a third party. That is to add to the objection already expressed. Thank you.
The civil party lead co-lawyer, you may proceed. Mr. Pech Ong. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors and members. The Defense Counsel mentioned that this document is the interview of another potential witness. And the basis for this objection was that this violates the ruling of the President, and we actually understand this practice. That's why we do not simply present this as what the Defense Counsel say, but here what we are trying to do is simply take portion of this interview so as to refresh his memory. It is not the extraction of the portion of the interview itself, but it's a mere extraction of some substance of this document to present to the witness. And secondly, concerning the mention of the name of this potential witness, because this document actually carries the names of this individual. But Mr. Chunti did not mention that this person is a potential witness before this chamber, but it was the Defense Counsel himself who made it public that this is a potential witness. And this actually breached the confidentiality of the name of potential witnesses. The President. Counsel for Khieu Samphan, you may proceed. National Counsel for Khieu Samphan. Thank you, Mr. President, and I would like to reply to the civil party lead co-lawyer. I think that the lead co-lawyer might be mistaken in relation to the presentation of the document. The document may be presented when the party introduce a new document in order to confront another witness. That was not allowed in accordance with the procedure before this chamber, and it was the practice before. The President. After hearing the objections by the defense counsel against the question put by the counsel for the civil parties, first the Chamber wishes to remind the civil party lawyers and other members to be mindful when they are using the name of potential witnesses whom the Chamber may summon to testify before the Chamber, and counsel should be prepared in order to implement this practice smoothly, particularly before presenting any document in a public session like this. Secondly, the Chamber advised the civil party lawyers to put the question again to the witness. Counsel Laujanti. Thank you, Mr. President. I have some additional question concerning his work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. When you were propagandizing in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you said that you actually yourself educated some 50 children who were selected to the ministry. What was the subject matters of your education for those children?
Wow.
Response. The children of about 50 of them, whom I trained, I actually educated them how to read and write and some numerical calculation as well. And as for ideological training, it was the responsibility of other section, and my responsibility was confined to that I described earlier. Question. When you were working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, how often did you meet Mr. Ieng Sari? Response. As I mentioned in my subsequent answer, in my previous answer, I did not meet him frequently. Oftentimes, I only met him when we had to welcome foreign delegations. And at that times, I accompany the motorcades and accompanying the delegation. Question. I got it from your statement earlier that we had to implement the independence policy. What do you mean by independent policies? What was constituted independence? Response. Actually, it was the interpretation of this policy based on the understanding from one to another. For example, we had to be self-reliant. We plant vegetables to support ourselves. We plant sugar cane in order to produce sugar for ourselves. So that's what we mean by independent. Question. How about the communication structure within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? how did you communicate with each other? For example, when you had to go down to the field, upon coming back, you had to report to your superior. Who did you report to? Response. I mentioned in my earlier statements already, but again, I had to report to my direct supervisor, Jim.
ដោយសារអ៊ំបានចូលធ្វើបដិវត្តយូរហើយខ្ញុំចង់ដឹងថា
Question. Since you had joined the revolution for quite some time, could you tell us about the establishment of the cooperatives? Because cooperatives were created in villages and in districts. How were they managed? What was the structure of the cooperatives like from the lower level to the zone level? Response. At the base, the cooperatives were under supervision of the commune branch. Each cooperative had its own cooperative committee, and the committee was under commune, commune was under the district, district was under the upper level institution. Question. This morning, the prosecutor showed a document to you, document concerning the journalists, the 3 journalists. My question is, when the 3 journalists would like to visit some provinces, were their requests to visit the places entertained? And after the visits, were they allowed to return to their home country or not? Response. The request by those journalists was not significantly entertained. I mean, as far as I remember, the requests, not all the requests were granted. And I believe that after such visits, they would return home. Question. With regard to the evacuation, you indicated that on the 17th of April, you were in Phnom Penh and you had to go back the same day when you came in. Why did you have to rush to go back? What kind of mission was that? Response. The mission was not clear. I was behind the military. I was working in the rear and I was engaged in propaganda. After the victory, everyone went to the city to see it with their own eyes. And I was not part of the military who won the victory over Phnom Penh, and I had nothing to do with this because the military was involved and they had to be in charge, and they had to take control of the vicinity. At that time, they were still they were preparing for some other events. Question: could you tell us what you witnessed when you came to Phnom Penh? Response: I think you need to clarify the question. Are you asking me that what I saw when I went to the city? Yes, I saw the Lonal soldiers, the deserted soldiers, those who were defeated, and I would see them or their weapons being surrendered and carried on the cyclones. And the military was still in Phnom Penh. Thank you, says Council. My final question. I would like to know the management system and the communication between the lower level and upper level people. With regard to your reports, were all the reports mechanism being informed to the upper echelon? Response: I think your question draws my speculation. As a person at the lower level, I had to obey the upper level, and the upper level would be reporting to another upper level, and I'm not knowledgeable of the content of such communication on our system because I don't understand this. Council, Mr. President, I have no further questions to put to the witness. The President, thank you. Since it is now appropriate time for adjournment, the Chamber will adjourn for 20 minutes. The next session will be resumed by 3 o'clock.